Hey, what's going on, everyone? I am Wolflaff, and welcome to a sort of spiritual successor to that War of the Rohirrim review that I did. If you're new to the channel and you haven't heard of who I am, well, I'm just a moron who talks about video games and who plays video games and talks about movies now occasionally. But if you are new, be sure to like and subscribe. I mean, might as well support the channel, helps us grow. More accurately, helps me grow. I have no friends who are actually a part of this. I have no friends in general. Anyways, this video we will be ranking all of the Lord of the Rings battles from worst to the best. And I'm pretty sure we can all kind of figure out what the battles at the top would be, but we all may forget that there are a surprising amount of battles in the Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I will be including The Hobbit. It does pad out the runtime and also pads out the list to show you the difference between a good and a bad battle. I also will be playing Shadow of Mordor in the background, just have some footage laid over it so you can watch that. A little bit of an old style video from back in the olden days. Also, if you don't know what Shadow of Mordor is, I don't know where you were in the early 2010s, because this game was really good. If you've never played it, I recommend it. I highly recommend it, as I believe it probably will still be on sale by the time this video goes up. I mean, Steam generally does these holiday sales pretty consistently, and I got Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War last year for just $10. Definitely worth it. $10 between the two of them, by the way, not just for one each, which is insane. Anyways, without further ado, let's get back to the battle ranking. Anyways, you might be wondering, what are the criteria for a good and a bad battle? All of them, first of all, have to have good acting, but thankfully, that's not much of a criteria in the first place with these movies, since the Lord of the Rings generally has, in the Hobbit, actually, exceptional acting. So in this situation, we'll be looking at how the tension builds, how realistic I guess I feel it is, because Lord of the Rings, while it is unrealistic in terms of the overall scope of what's going on, like there's not going to be a giant fire-breathing dragon in the real world, but it does have rules that it needs to hold up to. Lord of the Rings is a world in which there's a standard that must be held up to, there is a level of consistency within the logic and the realism that, like, you can't just jump off a cliff and have no scars, no cuts, no bruises, and be fine. This will lead to some of the Hobbit movies with their kind of unrealistic in-world physics being ranked lower. The third criteria that I will be talking about is, how does this develop the plot? How does it develop the characters, which I guess they go hand in hand? And does this matter overall? So there's some kind of pointless scenes. I mean, maybe they have a little bit of character development, maybe they kind of develop the plot in some way, but also they feel like they don't necessarily need to be in there. I think the perfect example of this is the Lake Town raid by Bolg in the second Hobbit film, The Desolation of Smaug. It doesn't advance the plot, it doesn't really do anything, so it'll probably be ranked lower. I do know where I ranked it, but I want to keep the mystery. So yeah, if it does not advance the plot, if it doesn't have really much advancement for the characters, then it will be ranked inherently lower than some battles who have huge advancements for the characters, huge developments in the plot, and matter overall in the grand scope of things. The last bit, and this goes hand in hand again, it's technically a two-step process, is, do I think this qualifies as a true battle? And did they use their runtime effectively? So shorter battles will not be held, it will not be held against them if they are shorter than a longer but worse battle. The Battle of Amon Hen will not be ranked lower than the Battle of the Five Armies, which I know that's a spoiler, but also we all expected that. We all know the Battle of Five Armies isn't that great. I guess a better example from a different universe so I don't spoil my list is that minor battle in Season 1, I guess Whispering Woods or wherever Robb Stark, in Game of Thrones, when Robb Stark sends the 2,000 men to go off and die, would not be ranked any lower than, per se, the Battle of Winterfell in The Long Night, because honestly, the 2,000 men going to fucking die was better than The Long Night, which is sad to say. But anyways, I'm getting a little sidetracked. Some battles also don't qualify because I don't think they have a grand enough scale, and I know I did kind of just contradict my rule with like runtime and whatnot, but I think some battles need to be left off the list just because I don't believe they're battles, they're more skirmishes or short fights. So the battles that I've chosen to leave off the list, God, I can't speak, is the Troll Battle in The Hobbit, where they're fighting the three trolls, the Orc Chase outside of Rivendell, which you could make an argument for is a battle, but also all the resolution happens off screen. the Weathertop, and by extension, the Weathertop battle with the Nazgul, and by extension, the Fords of Brunnen. It's more of like a chase. The Mumakil battle, not in Pelennor Fields, but with Faramir and his rangers in the second movie. Gandalf versus Sauron and Dol Guldur. It's a little bit of a back and forth, but it's mostly just magic, magic, magic. Very few combatants. Some plot development, and I just didn't feel like it was a large enough scale. The wizard battle between Saruman and Gandalf, because if we include this, it would actually rank quite high because it's really cool. The Watcher in the Water scene, which I did not include in the Battle of Balin's Tomb because it's completely different segments and they're separated by days in the book and even by days in the movies. And the Rohirrim ambush, which is more of an aftermath that we see where Theodred dies. It's all in the extended edition. I felt like someone might mention some of these if I didn't rank them. Some battles also don't qualify because I don't think they have a grand enough scale. And I know I did kind of just contradict my rule with like runtime and whatnot, but I think some battles need to be left off the list just because I don't believe they're battles, they're more skirmishes or short fights. So the battles that I've chosen to leave off the list, God, I can't speak, is the Troll battle in The Hobbit, where they're fighting the three trolls, the Orc chase outside of Rivendell, which you could make an argument for is a battle, but also all the resolution happens off-screen. The Weathertop, and by extension, the Weathertop battle with the Nazgul, and by extension, the Fords of Brunnen. It's more of like a chase. The Mumakil battle, not in Pelennor Fields, but with Faramir and his rangers in the second movie. Gandalf versus Sauron and Dol Guldur. It's a little bit of a back and forth, but it's mostly just magic, magic, magic. Very few combatants. Some plot development, and I just didn't feel like it was a large enough scale. The wizard battle between Saruman and Gandalf, because if we include this, it would actually rank quite high because it's really cool. The Watcher in the Water scene, which I did not include in the Battle of Balin's Tomb because it's completely different segments and they're separated by days in the book and even by days in the movies. And the Rohirrim ambush, which is more of an aftermath that we see where Theodred dies. It's all in the extended edition. I felt like someone might mention some of these if I didn't rank them. I do want to say two more things before we get started. First of all, be sure to like and subscribe. Again, it really helps the channel grow. And secondly, if Weathertop was ranked, it'd probably be very high, around like 8 or 9. So yes, all you hagglers who really like that scene, and myself included, I love that scene. I just didn't feel like it was a grand enough scope. I think that's the battle that I'm going to get the most hate for not putting in, if I get any hate at all, because nobody knows who the fuck I am. But enough of my rambling. Without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, we're starting off strong. At number 19, yes, I somehow managed to squeeze out 19 battles, and I did not include Rings of Power, and I did not include War of the Rohirrim. I may do a redo of this list in the future with future knowledge gained by me and my amateur film expertise. And when I actually can get my hands on a digital copy or whatever the fuck of War of the Rohirrim so I can watch the movie over and over, actually watch the battles, because most of this is just gone by and is started by my love for these films and the fact that I watch them just about every year. But yes, at number 19, we have the Battle for the Lonely Mountain. Not the Battle of Five Armies. That's different. This is the battle, the end of the second film, between Smaug and the dwarves, which does have some plot development. I mean, Smaug goes and leaves, but also, it did not need to be here. It felt forced because they did the two movie instead of 3 movie thing. Oh, excuse me. And it also felt as if it nullified any threat that Smaug posed. Because they make him look like a fucking idiot. He looks like such a goober the whole time. He's outsmarted consistently by the dwarves, which I know, I like our characters being outsmarted, but it's not because they're smart, it's because he's dumb. That's not satisfying at all. I felt like some of the plans in the thing were pretty cool. It was cool the first time I watched it when I was like 7, but in that regard, I loved those movies when I was 7. I still love them because it's like my childhood. It's like how prequel or 90s kids still like the prequels. So yes, don't get mad at me for loving those movies. But yeah, I just don't think that there's a lot of merit to this battle. It kind of just wastes my time. I don't really want to go into it anymore. It's tensionless because you know that Thorin's probably going to die at the end of the Battle of the Five Armies, and you also know that If any of the dwarves are going to die, they're not well developed enough for you to actually care. It does no plot development outside of Smaug leaving to go to Lake Town, which that battle's significantly higher up, which people will get mad about. But this battle just feels like it was all spectacle. There's some good CGI. It looks nice. Little to no tension. It's a little bit satisfying to watch. Character development is nothing. I guess it proves that Thorin's a brave and competent leader. That's about it. Otherwise, I've spent 2.5 minutes already talking about this battle, and I feel like I should not have spent any more than about 30 seconds. So on to number 18. At number 18, probably my most hated battle, and that does not make it the worst, but it's still my most hated because at least there's some development, is the Lake Town raid by Bolg. There's some cool shots with Legolas shooting the orcs and whatnot, but also this scene is everything wrong in The Hobbit, in my opinion. People say the barrel chase scene is everything wrong with The Hobbit. No, it's not, because that scene at least happens in the fucking books. You know what doesn't happen in the books? I guess there's not really a barrel chase. They escape on barrels. You know what doesn't happen in the books, though? There's no attack on Lake Town. There's no Legolas. The only thing this kind of does is build up Bolg's fighting technique, and it actually establishes the move that Legolas uses to eventually kill him, and how Bolg initially wins the fight. I guess that's good. It's decent development. There's some character development. I mean, Legolas is kind of facing his own mortality, but that doesn't really come back up. And also, we don't learn anything new about any of the characters, really. Just because this development doesn't mean we learn something new. We don't learn anything new about any of the characters, except that this kind of invalidates Aragorn having healing hands. Because they use the same weed that Aragorn uses to stop Keely's wound. It's so dumb. Kind of screws up the whole thing. It's something I realized on like a third watch through after watching a video on it. I just don't like this scene at all. Kind of makes the original trilogy feel a little bit pointless, with or at least make Aragorn look a little less heroic, which is why I rank it second to last. It's pretty bad. Now, in the third place for shittiest battles in the Hobbit trilogy, and in the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit trilogies combined, we have the Goblin Chase in Goblin Town. There is a few good moments in this. I think the start is very good. It shows how the dwarves fight. I think the troll fight that I didn't include because, I mean, it was like 20 seconds long. That did that very well. But otherwise, after that, it's just stabby shot, stabby shot, stabby shot. Occasional set piece, stabby shot, stabby shot, stabby shot. Bomber set piece, stabby shot, stabby shot, stabby shot. And then we roll down a boulder, and it's tensionless. It's as the YouTuber Just Right describes, another load of laundry. It has no stakes, really. Makes the goblins seem extremely, like, toothless. They're completely awful. They do nothing. And the encounter with the Great Goblin is decent at the end. So that's why it's definitely not last. There's some merit to this one. This is the first, I'd say, not 100% awful. First not 100% awful battle scene. Because at least it establishes some character development. It shows how the dwarves, again, fight a little more. It shows that they all do have some fighting prowess, and they all have their weapons of choice. I guess that's helpful. But other than that, I don't really know what else there is to say about it. It's tensionless. It's kind of dull. Feels a little insulting. But at least it's less harmful, in my opinion, than the two before it. All right. In the 16th spot, the fourth to last spot, no surprise, it's another Hobbit fight scene. And it's one that they also didn't include in the books. At least the Goblin Chase had the dignity to be included in the books. It's the first book fight that happened so far. But also, Bilbo was originally present for it, which he's not in the movie. Anyways, that's enough about the Goblin Chase. I should be talking about the Dol Guldur witch battle. I think that this scene is visually awesome. I think this might be one of the visually coolest scenes throughout both trilogies. Story-wise, it feels forced. I think there's some cool moments in it. I don't think this battle is necessarily awful like the three before it. It's not harmful like the last two. It's just kind of pointless. And I guess it proves stuff that we already know, which I know prequels are supposed to do that. but they're supposed to reveal things instead of, oh, I don't know, saying the same thing that we figured out about, if you were to watch these all back to back 40 minutes ago, or even longer than that, like an hour and a half ago in screen time. It just kind of feels like it's another representation of The Hobbit. Loaded. It goes on for a little bit long. I do think Radagast showing up and like the tension or the relationship between Galadriel and Gandalf having some payoff. I guess this kind of that was a nice scene. This kind of helps emphasize her sorrow after Gandalf falls in Fellowship of the Ring. So it does some things. At least there's some development here. There's some pretty cool moments. I think the plot impact, though, aside from Saruman, there was no plot impact at all. There's nothing new revealed about this about the plot. There's no new plot developments. The battle doesn't really develop the characters anymore, except it shows us that Galadriel's powerful, like we thought, since we've already seen the Fellowship of the Ring. Anyways, this battle, it just kind of does nothing, which is a bad thing. It's not good to do nothing, and also it's still kind of tensionless, because we know all these characters survive. Anyways, moving on to number 15. All right, at the 15th spot, I wasn't sure if I should originally include this, but we had the Battle of Azanobazar, the Battle of Moria in The Hobbit, where Thorin chops off Azog's arm. This is actually one of the big story developers for the backstory between Thorin and Azog. It establishes a history. It establishes motive between why this Thorin wants to kill this prick, why Azog wants to kill him. And it at least has the decency to develop the story and the characters. It does a great job of developing Balin. It does a pretty good job of developing Thorin. Azog is a nothing character, but at least sets him up as a credible threat as we see him kill Thorin's grandfather. So, it does something right, and it does something credible. My main issue with it is just it's a flashback battle, and it's the worst of the three that we get. I don't think it's bad. I actually think it's pretty good for what we're shown. We're just not shown a lot. And I know I said that, longer scenes or shorter scenes would not be held against the overall result. That's to an extent. I think that there should actually be a little more action than is shown. It's mostly just the duel between Azog, or Thror getting his head chopped off, the duel between Azog, and then we get a few more add-on scenes in future films. And I guess we have the charge toward the Dimril Gate, and then the aftermath. It does good things in the aftermath, but again, I just don't think there's enough screen time to fully flesh out what's needed to be, or not what's needed to be fleshed out, because none of this needs to be there. I don't think that it's as good as the battles ahead of it, is what I meant to say. I don't think that it does as much. Speaking of doing not enough with what they're given, I think that this next 14th entry is the most inefficient battle in all of Lord of the Rings, as it is about 2 hours in runtime total, or something crazy like that. I don't know, I didn't go check. But I am talking, of course, about the Battle of the Five Armies. There is major plot developments here, and to its credit, there's some pretty good scenes, like the spectacle, which I forgot to talk about that as a criteria. I do think spectacle matters a bit, but it's one of the lesser things I want to talk about. Spectacle is really cool. It looks pretty nice for a decent bit of it. Scale is huge. Story is, it's good, I guess. It has the resolution to the main plot. They kill Azog, Thorin dies. The little bit of the aftermath of the battle, we're shown how everyone's recovered and whatnot. It matters. My issue with this battle is we do not know the size of the armies, and we're not given a good sense of how they work. So let me give you an example of a battle in which we're pretty familiar with how many soldiers are left. Like, we're given a good sense of how the battle is going. I think the Pelennor Fields does a great job of this. They show the physical, like, where the armies are in the conquests. Or I guess in the conquering of Minas Tirith. We're given a good sense of back and forth and whatnot. Good and bad. And although we're not showing exact, like, numbers or whatnot of people dying, I think that it does so much better of a job than this battle does. because of the CG being used, I have no clue how large the Dwarvish army is at any point in the battle, how large the Elf army is. It all just is CG schlock. At least in Minas Tirith, we're shown specific orcs that we can kind of follow. I mean, obviously, you can't do that with something like Helm's Deep, but we're at least shown our characters and pushed back a little more. Anyways, with Minas Tirith, we were given specific orcs to follow, and once they died, we're like, oh, I guess Sauron's pretty much going to lose this one. But yeah, this battle has like very little tension. We don't know how large the armies are at any point, so we don't know who's winning, really. I mean, at one point, Azog says the dwarves are almost spent when the charge happens and the rally happens. At the same time, it looks pretty much the same size. I do think that the extended edition of this battle is significantly better, as it does include like the war machines being destroyed. It includes the war machines in the first place, which are freaking awesome. I think that should have been in the theatrical cut. It also shows like our characters overcoming the odds that the previous dwarves who were in charge of the war machines couldn't really do, or couldn't really overcome. I just believe this battle has a sense of, I don't know what's going on most of the time, and it's not that great. It feels a little bloated, because literally no character development happens until about the latter third. I mean, when we cut back to Thorn, that's the only development that happens for about the first hour of the battle. And then the last bit, there's the development of like Thorn killing Azog. You know, he's finally able to see that he was in the wrong, and he talks to Bilbo about that. Bilbo is selfless, Thranduil is selfish, Legolas is still getting friend-zoned, Keely dies, Toriel sad, kill off the nothing characters, kill off Bolg, yada yada. It just kind of feels like it's going through the motions. And the last like 45 minutes when they're at Ravenhill is really good because it's all character driven. When the battles are character driven, they're better. You can still have large forces in the battle, like I think Pelennor Fields does this well, but they're driven by the characters. The only character that really drives the battle on the side of good throughout the entire time is like Dane, Thranduil, and Bard. Gandalf feels like he does nothing. Bilbo is literally doing nothing. Thranduil has like a few shots of him doing things. Dane actually feels like he's commanding a little bit better. The way I say that is, the reason I say that is Dane is asking, where's Thorin? Where's the main character? Yada yada. It's connecting back to the actual plot. Whereas Bard, it just feels like he has the same extras and whatnot. He's doing tactical things, I guess, when he sends the bowmen to cover a causeway, like fucking genius. But it feels like they do nothing with his character. There's no developments. He saves his children, I guess. And he has his conflict with Alfred. By the way, Alfred's scenes in this battle are just to break up, and I'm going to quote just right, when I say this, to break up the monotony of the battles and break up how boring they are. I didn't realize that on my first watch through when I was like 8, but yeah, come on Peter Jackson, that's really, really bad. And I do believe I'm spending the right amount of time on this battle, kind of fleshing out why my grievances with it. I'm spending like 5 minutes, nearly 6 minutes probably by the time this is done. But I just feel like this battle does nothing. It doesn't do anything efficiently. It does everything inefficiently. The only thing it accomplishes are when all the characters are together. Most of the characters have no development during the battle. The plot has actual development, but again, just having plot development doesn't make the doesn't make the battle good. Anyways, moving on to the next spot. All right. At number 13, we have the barrel chase. I know a lot of you are surprised that this is not lower. Well, I like this battle because it is funny. It is humorous. There is plot development. There's actually a decent bit of plot development. There is some character development, even though I don't really like where they went in the direction. That doesn't mean it's not. At least it accomplishes a goal. And overall, it's a fun battle. Keely gets shot in the leg. That's plot development. They escape Thranduil's realm. Plot development. Character development is Keely is very brave. Obviously, Bilbo has proven his worth to the company. And if they did this in a 2-movie structure, this is where they'd have that scene on top of the Carrack in the end of the first movie, where like Thorin's really happy and hugging Bilbo and yada yada. Also, it shows, I guess, the emotional connection or whatever between Keely and Toriel, because when he gets shot, she is concerned. That's some character development, at least. There's not much else to say about this battle because it is overall fun. There's nothing inherently insulting about it except for the physics, and that's why people don't like it. But also, I'm going to break my own rule here, and I do think the inconsistency at least lends itself to the goofiness of the movies. It's the so bad it's the good type of battle. But anyways, let's move on to number 12. I don't have anything else to say about this. At number 12, we have the introduction to the whole series. We have the Lord of the Rings prologue. And some of you might be saying, oh, the Hobbit prologue didn't make it? Why didn't you mention that? No, it actually got ranked higher. Because I'm a cheeky bastard who does what he wants with this list. Lord of the Rings prologue is decent enough. Establishes the main conflict. I think, as a prologue, it's one of the best prologues ever. But I think the battle in it is just kind of meh. It's inherently limited by the source material in that we don't see these characters again besides Elrond. And it only really does something plot-wise for Elrond. And I guess it kind of establishes that men are weak, which helps out both Aragorn and Boromir. Plot developments, I mean, it sets up the plot for the whole series, so that's got to be something. But overall, it's a solid battle. I think we're entering the section of these battles are not bad anymore. These are good, solid battles. Even if they're short, they're solid. So this is, don't take this as an insult. I love this scene. I know we all love this scene. Let's move on to number 11. At number 11, everyone's going to be mad at me now. We have the Hobbit prologue. The Hobbit prologue, I believe, is a more effective battle. Mostly because Thorin is leading the way a little bit more than Isildur was or Elrond was in the Lord of the Rings prologue. It shows the character strife, like that dwarves are greedy, and even when Thror is literally about to die if he goes into the pit of gold, dwarves are greedy, and that Arkenstone makes them even greedier. I also think that it does a good job in establishing Thorin and Balin's relationship as going this far back. As I consider the battle beginning, basically when Bilbo says it came in, the first noise we heard was like a hurricane coming down from the north. That's when I consider the battle begin. And I know this is kind of a one-on-many battle, but also any fight with a dragon is a battle. I don't care what you say. And I think that the plot, both the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit films set up their plot great. I think this one does a little more with character and establishes some of the relationships that we see later on. Well, the Lord of the Rings prologue does that decently. It's not with any characters that we see in the film later. So that's why I rank this one higher. Anyways, let's move on to number 10. Top 10. At the number 10 spot, I have the Black Gate. I think the Battle of the Black Gate is the worst of the major large-scale battles in Lord of the Rings. Now let me explain why before everyone comes for my head. It is an effective climax to the trilogy. It is not bad. It is actually great. Everything 10 on is great. I know we had a very small mediocre section, but everything 10 on is great. My one complaint about it is landslide victory seems a little overused at this point. He did it, Jackson did it great in Helm's Deep. It made sense. I guess it kind of makes sense in this one because like Sauron's forces are defeated. But also we're not shown a ton of the fighting. There's no character work that goes on here besides the 4 Frodo scene, which means like it's everyone sacrificing themselves. That's a good scene. But otherwise, it doesn't really establish anything new. There's there's high stakes, sure. But also it's not well built tension. It's not, besides Aragorn, there's not like Pippin in the books getting crushed by a troll. There's not we don't really see any other characters struggling. I guess there's some tension relief and some well-built payoff with the Eagles are coming. That's good. But also, I feel like the tension was a bit lacking in the scene. In the battle portion, because also the scene is cut together with the hobbits in Mount Doom. I can't really include that because it's not a part of the battle. It's so disconnected from the battle by geographical distance that I can't really count it the same way that I would Thorin being in the Battle of the Five Armies, his scenes, which actually do boost that battle because his scenes are pretty good. compare that to the best scenes, which are Frodo and Sam and Gollum fighting for the ring in Mount Doom. Those scenes are great, but I can't really include them. They're a different geographical location. Our characters don't know what's going on at all. They don't know that that Frodo's even there. So yeah, I just feel like this scene does not have a ton of well-built tension within the battle. For the overall story, the tension is great, but that's mostly due to the Mount Doom part, as opposed to the Black Gate part. Anyways, let's move on to number 9. At the number 9 spot, we have Out of the Frying Pan and Into the Fire. It is not the highest ranked Hobbit battle. I know some of you might be surprised because this is a pretty good battle. Everyone's going to be mad that it's ranked over the Black Gate, because how could the Hobbit ever be better than Lord of the Rings? There are some scenes that are better. Don't take it as the Lord of the Rings being bad, just take it as the Hobbit being very underrated. Now, the reason Into the Fire is this high is mainly because of its plot and character development. Its character development of Bilbo having the courage to sacrifice his life for Thorin, which I do think is a weird change compared to his like actual unique adding to the company in the book of him breaking them out of Thranduil's halls. I think that him still, laying down his life for, or being willing to lay down his life for Thorin does have a large effect. And also, there's a blink and you miss it moment that I think really elevates this battle. It's when Thorin gets saved. He drops the Oakenshield. He has to shed his identity of the Oakenshield to truly be king. I think that's really well done. And I also think that his hatred of Azog is really well portrayed in this scene. I think Richard Armitage did a great job with that performance. And overall, I think the personal element of this smaller battle scene does lend itself pretty well to the overall story, and it does, I guess, boost it up in my rankings. I also think the ending of the Eagles having a really good payoff, because we see Gandalf call them like 5 minutes earlier at the beginning of the battle. I think that it's well done. I think that it's a good payoff that even we kind of recognize it from Lord of the Rings. The Eagles save them, and they carry Thorin away. I also think this is one small little detail that does boost this battle up a little more, is that the 4 dwarves, or the dwarves that come to save Thorin after Bilbo attacks, are the same dwarves he takes up with him to Ravenhill. Aside from Balin, but that's only in the extended edition. I think it does some pretty decent character work with what it's given. It does portray Dwalin, actually, in a surprising moment of battle, character development, as being like Thorin's main bodyguard. Balin as well gets some decent development. It cuts to him a lot, which is that's good character work. Just with the little bit it's doing a lot more than I think the Black Gate did. I think we're seeing more of the reactions and actions, and the tension is built up. It's like, oh shit, is the quest gonna end now? Is Thorin gonna die? I think it's built up a little better than the Black Gate, where the only real threat is Aragorn actually dying, and that is a good threat. That's why it's top 10. But I do think that the rest of the company dying is a little bit more of a threat in our minds in the Out of the Frying Pan into the Fire sequence. In the number 8 spot, we have another smaller battle in the Ent attack on Isengard. Now everyone's saying, heresy! Heresy! How is this ahead, or how is this not higher, or how is this ahead of the Black Gate? Just because it's a larger battle, again, does not make it better. I think the Ent attack on Isengard portrays the themes of the movie very well, and it also does some good character work with Treebeard, some good plot development, and that Isengard is flooded now. It just does a good job overall. It's a solid battle. I actually don't have too much to say with this. I don't think people will be too mad about me ranking it this high. It's a really good scene still. The Ents are going to war, like the march is really awesome. I know we cut away from that right afterwards, but also, do you really want to watch them walk all the way to Isengard? I don't. And also, it's probably one of the best scenes in the whole trilogy when they break the dam, release the river, and it portrays the theme of deindustrialization and like a return to nature, which was so prominent in Tolkien's books. It portrays it very well. I don't have too much more to say about this battle, so let's move on to number 7. All right, at number 7, we have the Lake Town attack by Smaug. Now, you might be saying, this isn't much of a battle, and I say, fuck off. I'm in charge here, and this is my channel. I think this battle is actually better than some of the others. First of all, it's in the books. Automatic bonus for anything the Hobbit films. This should probably not be too much talked about. Like, they should all come from the books, but unfortunately the Hobbit films did take a lot of creative liberties, as we shall call them. But the Lake Town battle with Smaug is the probably best tension-built scene in the whole trilogy, and it's kind of the climax of the book. It's not really about the Battle of the Five Armies, it's more about Smaug being dead. I think that the movie does a great job with it. Adding Bard's kids gives him an emotional stake in it. Making him a real character, also great. And I really liked the way they did it. The look at me bit, and the music, Howard Shore's score is beautiful. I think overall it's a very well done scene. The destruction as well is so good. I have a theory that the actual inspiration for a lot of the dragon destruction in Game of Thrones was this scene. I mean, we see the city just incinerated. And I know that the movie's not about like the gore and whatnot, but the city is just on fire. The entirety of Esgaroth is just absolutely burning. And I think the final scene of Smaug being dead and kind of the karmic debt that he has with the Master just being crushed is really good. And it gives us the true chaos of a dragon attack, which I thought was decently portrayed in the Battle of Dale, but I thought it was better portrayed in the Battle of Esgaroth or Lake Town. And yes, the character and plot work that was done in this battle are just phenomenal. I don't know if I've seen, I don't think that there is a better development or bigger development in the Hobbit trilogy, aside from maybe the conclusion of the Battle of the Five Armies, but this one was just done better. And every bit of attention to detail to these scenes, if every scene could have been this good in the Hobbit trilogy, we'd have something that would rival Lord of the Rings. Because this is, I'd say, at least an 8.5 out of 10 in terms of battles. I'd say the Black Gate, which is the lowest Lord of the Rings major battle, is an 8 out of 10. It's not bad. All of you, shut up. It is not bad. There are, outside of maybe the last two on this list, there are no real bad battles in these series. So everyone shut up, calm down, get your panties out of the bunch, it'll be fine. But yeah, I'd rate this as an 8.5 out of 10, and this next battle is a 9 at least. Speaking of this next battle, let's move on to number 6. Alright, the Lake Town attack was the highest ranked battle from the Hobbit trilogy. We're now only Lord of the Rings battles. And oh my gosh, do we start off with a really good one at number 6, the Warg attack in the Two Towers. I think this battle does a great job of building tension. Score is great. It does show the horror of war and the colliding of the two forces. While this battle is kind of smaller in scale, really portray the fight that's about to come in Helm's Deep. I think that the cutoff of the score when two forces collide just absolutely make this battle instantly great. And not to mention, all the action we see is frantic, it's quick cut, it's done well. The build up to this battle is great, with Hama being killed. He's a minor character, but at least if you kill a minor character with the threat you're about to pose, it does give them some sort of credence. We see Aragorn almost die as well. So there is some major plot development, even though it does feel a little pointless overall. They could have cut the scene, in my opinion. But there is some plot development. It does give us the Gimli-Legolas rivalry in counting, which is minor, but it's important. It lends to the sense that Theoden really is terrified of Isengard, because he tells, and everyone seems alarmed by this, he tells his commanders to leave the dead. Now, normally they'd give him proper funerals and whatnot, but he is extremely terrified of the threat that the wolves of Isengard pose. So much so that he really does not want to fight this at all. He only fights it because he has to. I think it does a really good job of building up for Helm's Deep as well. On top of the fact it's just a cool action scene. Get off my back. I wanted to rank it this high because it's my channel. I can do what I want. And some of you might disagree with this ranking, and that's perfectly fine. I think it also has fewer flaws in tension building than the Black Gate does. I think the Black Gate's a little more of a stagnant in terms of tension battle, where it has one big spike at the end. And some character work. Otherwise, this battle is a solid 9. I think everything above this is definitely a 9 or higher. Speaking of stuff above this, let's get on to number 5, the Battle of Osgiliath. My favorite of the shorter battle sequences. The tension in this, first of all, is great. We have several minor characters and some major characters, most notably Faramir, the Witch King, and Gandalf are all involved in this battle in some way or another. And it builds each of them as a different type of threat and a different type of character. We see Faramir fail, which does actually lead to his almost death later on. We see the Witch King and some of his lower guys, like the Harvey Weinstein orc, Gothmog the Scarred, which you didn't know, that orc was designed to look like Harvey Weinstein. Somehow, it managed to be less disgusting than his actions outside of the studio. And I think builds the Witch King as this, and Sauron as this credible threat, this decent tactician, but it also builds Gandalf as like a symbol of hope for now, and as a powerful counter. I mean, when he rides out to save the rest of the soldiers, he's definitely shown as being powerful. And also, it shows Faramir failing, which a lot of these battles do not show our characters failing as much. Faramir fails a lot. But it also does, I think it does a great job at the dramatic buildup and the passage of time. Even though this battle is shorter than a lot of the others that take over a day, the way that it builds up from the first guy getting shot in the extended cut, because that's the only way to watch these Lord of the Rings movies, in the extended cut, to the chase back to Minas Tirith, I think it does a great job at portraying that the city is lost. We get a lot more shots, first of all, of Gondorians getting stabbed than Gondorians doing the stabbing, which I think Battle of the Five Armies definitely could have used a little more of, because mostly it was just kind of equal shots. And also, it does a great job at portraying fear within the Gondorian soldiers. You hear a lot of screaming, and not like, rah, more like, ah! But now that's going to become a meme. But you get a lot more of that, and a lot more of the idea that this orc threat is truly a threat. They're not to be laughed at. And I think that this battle lends itself well and supplements the Battle of Pelennor Fields very well. A similar way to which the Warg Attack supplements the Battle of Isengard. I think that Peter Jackson did a great job with both of these. Anyways, let's move on to the number 4 battle on my list. At number 4, we have the Battle of Balin's Tomb. In my opinion, the second best battle from Fellowship. Fight me. There's only really like 3, so I guess that's kind of a redundant statement. But I think that this battle does a lot of things excellently. This is where the first 9.5, my rating, 9.5, comes in. I think, first of all, the build-up from drums in the deep, Pippin screwing everything up, to then the orcs showing up and breaking through the door. Then a sort of climactic, overwhelming force coming through the door. Then showing us how the Fellowship fights, then retreating, going across the bridge, the final confrontation with the Balrog. That's where I consider the scene to end, by the way. That's why it's so high. I think that it does a great job of building up tension, especially towards the end and during the staircase sequence. I do think the first half is a little bit kind of tensionless, but not really, because we get some good shots and some good, acting and good back and forth. Mostly between the goblins are just kind of supplements to the cave troll. It's mostly the cave troll versus the Fellowship. The cave troll, at one point, he's like defeated by the Fellowship. Then he knocks Boromir unconscious. Then he's sort of shown to be invincible. Then he stabs Frodo. And then finally we kill him. And then we're all thinking Frodo's dead, but oh no, the Mithril saved him. That's called tight rating. That was introduced less than half an hour before, and you probably did forget about it. But all those who were attentive to the movie will not have forgotten about it, and they're rewarded by that payoff. Also, when they get to the bridge and the staircase scene, I think that those two scenes truly build up the Balrog to be this credible threat and to be this terrifying force in nature that it's fucking terrifying. Well, that's what it is. When Gandalf finally makes his last stand on the bridge of Khazad-dûm, I think we're given that the tension is building up. We see him defeat the Balrog, and then we see him lose. This is another thing I like about it. Gandalf loses. It is great. And it's done well. The tension is constantly building up throughout the whole fight, and you think, oh my gosh, he's finally safe. No, he's not. And I overall think that the development of this leads to the characters on having, like, Frodo is extremely sad. I think everyone's extremely sad. The plot development this has, not only for the world as a whole, because now we know that Moria is no longer safe, but we also lose Gandalf and we're left without a guide. I just think that this scene and this battle do wonders for the overall story, and it's a very effective battle sequence. At number 3, and our first 10 out of 10, is the Battle of Amon Hen. This is my personal favorite. However, I could not justify putting it at the number 2 or 1 spots, just because the battles that we all knew were coming are better. Alright, Battle of Amon Hen is the best smaller scale battle. When I say smaller scale, I don't mean in terms of the length, but in terms of the amount of combatants. I think we estimated, or people have estimated, around 100 plus Uruk-hai and the 9 Fellowship members. We see Aragorn's fighting style. This is something I forgot about battle balance too. We get to see the Fellowship fight for the first time and prove how they're competent each. In this battle, we get to see it again, but we also get to see Boromir truly put his last stand on display, put his heroism on display, and it's his redemption. I think, first of all, when this battle begins, when Aragorn tells Frodo to run, when the Uruk-hai appear, that's what I'm kind of the battle beginning. Not Boromir's bad part, but just the battle beginning, actually. I think the action we're shown is very well shot. We're given hope that Boromir might live, and when that first arrow impacts, it truly gives the sense that he's fucked and this is his last stand. I think that this battle was done extremely well, and the final showdown between Lurtz and Aragorn is fantastic. I also think this battle has the best score out of all of them. I think the Amon Hen final battle, I'm not doing it right, but you get my point. It sounds heroic. It sounds climactic. It's also in a key that makes it, or in a mode, I believe, that makes it sound a little bit terrifying. I mean, these Uruk-hai are a real threat, and it helps. This battle helps vindicate them as a real threat. Speaking of Uruk-hai and threats, my number 2 battle is Helm's Deep. Everyone's gonna be mad at me. I know this is a lot of people's number 1. I think, from start to finish, if we're not counting extended editions, Helm's Deep is better than Minas Tirith. Or the Pelennor, rather. But, if we include the extended editions, I believe Pelennor surpasses Helm's Deep. And I think that Helm's Deep is a little... it is... I don't think it is. It is a little shorter than the Pelennor. I think the scale, while being massive for a battle, is a little less than the Pelennor, and I think that it does a worse job at portraying how large the army is. And this mostly goes for the numbers on the Uruk-hai side, because they're all the same in terms of their facial. Like, we get that one leader, but we don't ever see him again. We don't get any specific Uruk-hai to follow. I guess the point is they're all unison and industrialized, right? That's good. The bad part is I don't know how many are left by the time that Eomer shows up and the sally out happens. Like, I have no clue. Thankfully, it doesn't work against it too much. I still think this battle is a 10 out of 10. It is beautiful. Oh my goodness. Every time the charge or the sally out happens, I get chills. And every time Eomer arrives, it's awesome. And finally, with the trees coming in, the extended edition only, which is really stupid. Thanks, Peter Jackson. No, I'm just kidding. It's probably an executive decision, producer stuff. I think that it really builds up the threat that the trees pose, and Middle Earth is fighting back against this industrialized threat. But overall, I think that everything in this battle is nearly perfect. I think the fire on the wall sequence, oh my god, it is beautiful. When Aragorn tosses Gimli, also beautiful. I love this battle. I really do. Sally out, great. Horn of Helm Hammerhand shall sound in the deep one last time. Amazing. Even the elves arriving. I do think that this is also something that works against it. This shouldn't really happen in The Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings is all about men taking over. Why would the elves come to help? It makes sense when Elrond does it at Dunharrow, because he's helping indirectly. But in this situation, it doesn't make sense. They don't have really the numbers in Middle-earth. I don't know, man. It just feels a little odd. I guess they wanted to make it a little more believable that the Rohirrim could survive. But you know what? We'll give it the benefit of the doubt. That's probably also why I'm shoving it a little lower. Alright, guys. In the number 1 spot, my favorite battle... Well, not really my favorite battle, but what I believe to be the best battle in Lord of the Rings is the Pelennor Fields. We all knew it would come down to either Helm's Deep or the Pelennor. I bet you probably expected me to put Balin's Tomb a little higher than I did, but I did not, because I prefer Amon Hen. Anyways, that's enough about other battles. This battle is the most realistic siege in Lord of the Rings. And it's not even close. First of all, it takes up the point in which I cannot fucking speak. The point at which I believe this battle begins is the sacrifice of Faramir. That's when the forward momentum happens for the orcs. They push on and they perceive Gondor's defense, or Minas Tirith's defenses, as being compromised. I think this is the battle where we're shown the most strategic decisions. It's not just retreat or push forward. Retreat or push forward, like the other battles are. We're given a great sense of where everyone is, which all the others, yes, they do a great job of this. For one that's at such a massive scale, I'm just surprised at how well it does this. I think also this has the best moments of any of the battles. Grond hammering down the doors of Minas Tirith, the charge of the Rohirrim, Aragorn coming in with his ghosts, Legolas taking down the Mumakil. All of them are fantastic. All the moments are fantastic. Of course, the sacrifice of Denethor fucking dying, which is hilarious and kind of stupid. It's the only real inaccuracy and gripe I have with the sequence. It's done a little weirdly because he wouldn't run 300 meters on fire, but also it looks cool. It's not like the elves thing where it just doesn't kind of make sense at all. I do think the good news is that the landslide victory, some people say it doesn't work here. I say it does. The idea of Aragorn coming in and being this beacon of hope and this savior it's effectively pushed through with the ghosts. You know, I don't think I have the issue that everyone else does with this battle, and I think overall this is the best battle in Lord of the Rings. Also, the extended edition scenes of them, first of all, failing to batter down the door with the handheld battering ram, great. The extended edition scenes of... Gosh, what else is there? Oh, of course, Aragorn ambushing the pirates, great. A few of the other extended edition scenes make this battle truly phenomenal. Also, the Witch King standoff with Gandalf, which is only in the extended edition, thank you again, studio, is just beautiful. There isn't that much added to the Helm's Deep extended edition, except for Final Count 42, which, you know, I'm a bit mad they kept that out of the theatrical, but also it wasn't perfectly necessary. But overall, I think this is the most realistic and best and most well done battle out of them all. It is just absolutely stunning at the scale. I haven't even mentioned the Mumakil. The Mumakil are fucking awesome. It shows that Theoden's tactics of charging at the enemy won't always work. And the duel between Eowyn and the Witch King, absolutely great. Just awesome. This battle is just like nearly, if you cut it, I think altogether it's about an hour of pure awesomeness. It is efficient. It is not bloated. We get all turns to silver glass. That scene. I don't know how anyone can hate this battle. I understand there's some complaints about the endings. I think it works, though. But overall, this is my #1 battle, and the battle I believe that deserves to be that's why I put it this high. The battle I believe is the best in Lord of the Rings. Let me know what you thought about my ranking and what you would change. Otherwise, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.